Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all members of the public, councillors, parish representatives and officers to the Planning Committee. Just before I go on any further, just to say the Planning Committee is a committee on which Councillor Mark Reid was supposed to have been serving for this council year, and obviously we've all heard of the untimely and tragic death of Mark Reid, and just wanted to say before this meeting starts, we obviously will miss him. It is a tragedy. It's for a sitting councillor and a relatively young councillor to die. It's a terrible thing, and wanted to say that and to mark that at the beginning of this meeting. We would have benefited from his input over the course of this year. Right, we'll just carry on with the words that we've got in front. So, this meeting is being streamed live and is capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public area of the council chamber, it is likely that your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public seating area of the council chamber and move to the upper public gallery. If members are, for any reason, not present for the whole debate on an item, then you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. Could I ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction that on hearing the alarm, you should leave the building by the nearest marked exit and congregate at the assembly point in the car park. Also, please switch all electronic devices being used to silent. My name is Councillor Philip Minot and I am the Chair. On my left is the Vice Chair, Councillor Martin Cuthbert. Members of the Planning Committee sit on the front row of benches and only those councillors who are members of the Planning Committee are entitled to vote. For clarity, as we go through the agenda this evening, members of the committee will be permitted to speak for up to 5 minutes on each item. Any other members and parish councillors will be permitted a maximum of 3 minutes to speak with permission from the Chair. May I remind members to declare any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests and the nature of the interest at the beginning of an agenda item, and that on declaring a pecuniary interest you are required to leave the meeting when that item of business is considered. There should be no interaction from the public areas at any time during the meeting. Members of the public invited to speak on tonight's applications will only be permitted to speak for 3 minutes if they have indicated to do so in advance as a representation or an applicant agent on specific applications. Requests to speak should have been received by the clerk by yesterday at 4 o'clock. In the event of disturbance, such as calling out from the public area during the meeting, a request from the Chair to be quiet will be given, but if the problem persists, any persons interrupting the meeting will be asked to leave. If necessary, the meeting will be adjourned to allow this to take place. So, the first item of business is apologies for absence. Mrs. Zoe Borman, have any apologies been received?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Dr Barrett, and Councillor Barrett is substituting. Thank you.
Councillor McShane, put your hand up.
Yeah, I just wondered if you could bring this forward to the Constitutional Working Group. It's quite difficult. We've only got two that can go on as subs, which was agreed in the last full council meeting. I just think two's not quite enough on both sides. I know they've got 3 and we've got 2, but I just think it perhaps should be sort of 4 or 5.
It is a large committee, planning. Yes. Well, we can certainly look at it.
And also, because it's difficult these days, we don't know whether there's going to be a meeting, and then there's one's put in. You know, yes, the last 2 have been cancelled. Yeah. They've got this one. We've got another one that's been put in July. Yeah. And I just think we do need to have a lot more. Yeah. As it is, Councillor Baldock has turned up tonight, upset his wife.
Well done, Councillor Baldock. And also, just before we go on any further, I haven't got a jacket on tonight. Anybody who is currently wearing a jacket and who would like to take their jacket off is absolutely fine by me. It's a little bit cooler than it has been, but it's warm still. Right, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations to be made? No, that's fine. Minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee on the 13th of May this year. Are the minutes of that Planning Committee agreed? Agreed. Yep. And the minutes of the Planning Committee on the 6th of May. I don't know why they were in that order, but anyway, they are. The 6th of May. Are the minutes of that meeting agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed? Right. Yep.
Can I just question, on the minutes of the 13th, where we had the TPOs, can I just ask officers to confirm that the instruction to issue the TPOs was executed, please? Because obviously we've had some decisions in this chamber where they didn't go to execution. I just want to make sure that TPO, the contentious TPO, actually did take place, please. Thank you.
Which officer would like to respond to that?
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. I'll have to double check with you on that. There's no reason why it shouldn't have been served because that was the clear instruction from the committee, but I will double check and get back to you.
Thank you for that, and that's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. These are the signed minutes of the meetings. Right. So, we will now go into the planning applications and matters. And I've only just read some of this stuff out. The committee will now determine the planning applications and matters before it. May I just remind those members of the public again who will be addressing the Committee on Planning Applications tonight that your speech should be no longer than 3 minutes in duration and should relate purely to planning matters. When your name is called, will you please make your way to the chair, provided when you have completed your speech, the committee will debate the application and reach a decision. So the first item of planning business tonight is item 5, which is for Larkins Playing Fields, Ongar Road and Pilgrim's Hatch. This is for the proposed construction of a new sports pavilion to include changing rooms and function room, reconfigured and extended parking facilities. And this is application number 24/01422/FUL. The recommendation is for approval and the case officer is Mr. Ovenden. Mr. Ovenden.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this application relates to the erection of a clubhouse including changing rooms, toilets and function room and extension and reconfiguration of the car park at Larkins Fields. This is the overall playing field site outlined in blue, and the application site, the building and the car park, is outlined in red. This is an aerial CGI showing the petrol station to the north of the site access to the top left, the day-to-day car parking towards the clubhouse. Shall I see if I can fold the thing down a bit? No. The day-to-day car parking towards the clubhouse and an indicated gated match day, training day, extra car parking near the access. This is the exterior of the proposed clubhouse building. It's single story. The top image is the elevation facing the playing fields. In the middle is the elevation facing the roadside hedgerow and Ongar Road, and the bottom of the two end elevations. This is the floor plan showing the changing rooms, the toilets, the kitchen and the functions room. And these are two CGIs showing the building facing into the playing fields. The site is in the green belt. New buildings in the green belt are inappropriate development unless one of the specified exceptions in paragraph 154 of the framework. The relevant exception here is 154B, and that is the provision of appropriate facilities in connection with the existing use of land or change of use, including buildings, for outdoor sport, outdoor recreation, as long as the facilities preserve the openness of the green belt and do not conflict with the purposes of including land within it. The proposal meets this exception, and therefore the proposal is not inappropriate development in the green belt. We did receive representations early on about the original plan to extend the car park down the side of the site, and the original plan is shown on the left. The applicant then submitted revised plans, which is the revised plan on the right, which shows a much smaller extension to the car park, and I've outlined or circled in green a set of gates that the applicant proposes to keep shut, apart from on match days and when there is a need for extra car parking. But with that exception, those gates would be shut. There have been no further objections, no objections from consultees, and the recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Ovenden. Right, so we have one speaker here, and that is Mr. Perry on behalf of Blueprint Properties on behalf of the applicant. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I'm speaking today on behalf of Martin Pearce and Brentwood Youth AFC, which is now a registered charity. Our journey began back in 2017 when Brentwood Youth first sat down with Brentwood Council to share a simple but powerful vision to work jointly to build a pavilion and proper facilities at our home ground, Larkins Playing Fields. Larkins Playing Fields were gifted to Brentwood Borough Council with a clear covenant that be used for the benefit of young people of the town of Brentwood. This project is about fulfilling that commitment and enhancing the space that has meant so much to many. Some of you may recall there was once a pavilion on the site, but sadly lost due to a fire. Due to funding constraints, it was never replaced. Since then, we've worked tirelessly through detailed planning, speaking with residents and close cooperation with Brentwood Council to bring forward a proposal that is practical, respectful and ready to be delivered. We've listened to our neighbours' feedback, and as a result, the pavilion has been moved to a new location opposite the petrol station on Ongar Road. We've also reduced the parking facilities to the extension next to the residential element, and we've got more parking spaces there to release pressure on the surrounding roads. The pavilion itself will feature modern changing rooms, toilets, a community hall designed with a guidance from Sport England, Essex FA and the Football Foundation, all who fully support this much needed project. It's more than just a facility for football, it's designed to be fully inclusive, multi-purpose space. We've already received interest from other sports teams, local organisations and early year providers. At its heart though, this pavilion is long overdue for the home of Brentwood Youth AFC and the Brentwood Youth girls team in particular. We currently have over 600 boys and girls playing every week, but at present our girls can't play at home at Larkins Farm due to the lack of facilities. This pavilion will finally change that. It will also give us a central hub to host events, build community and help young people make friendships and memories that will last a lifetime. We have a funding in place with support from the Football Foundation, our own resources and a generous £100,000 match funding from a local business. Once planning permission is granted, we're ready to begin construction immediately. It's been long overdue and we're hoping that this will pass today. So today, on behalf of Martin Pearce and everyone at Brentwood Youth AFC, I respectfully ask for your support in line with your officer's recommendation for approval. We can then take the next step towards building this vital community facility at Larkins Playing Fields.
Okay, thanks for that. Right, so there are obviously 3 ward councillors for the Pilgrim's Hatch ward. We have, I think I'll read out the emails first and I'll come to Councillor Mark Lewis, is the councillor who's in attendance last. So, first of all, from Councillor Vicky Davis, who can't attend the meeting tonight. Councillor Davis says, I ask the committee to support this application, allowing the building of a much-needed quality sports pavilion with associated parking. Larkins Football Club has an excellent track record of providing inclusive sports activity on what is a key site for football development. If this application is allowed, it will allow a wider range of activities for boys and girls that will greatly benefit all the community. I welcome the additional car parking spaces as it will protect the surrounding roads and improve highway safety. This application has the full backing of the Brentwood Leisure Team and Sports England, which is a testament to the club's high standards of sports provision. Please support the officer's recommendation for approval. That's Councillor Davis. And Councillor Barry Aspinall, who also unfortunately can't be here this evening, writes, good evening, Chair and members. I appreciate my comments being read out this evening. I had intended to be at this meeting, but due to personal circumstances, I cannot be with you. This application has been at least 6 years in the making, and I hope that you will all agree that the culmination of dozens of meetings with bodies outside of the council, with the Football Foundation, Sport England and other fund holders, Brentwood Youth Football Club have shown enormous patience with the overwhelming burden of bureaucracy, ticking boxes that in years past were not needed and in some cases have lengthened this process extensively. I certainly hope that the committee will agree to this application that will see the return of a clubhouse and changing rooms to Larkins after 20 plus years following the original clubhouse being destroyed by fire. Football played and enjoyed by all age groups has taken place on these fields for over 100 years. When Brentwood Town FC folded in the early 1970s on a field adjacent to Larkins, which subsequently became the Viking Way housing estate, the Manor Football Club took up residence at Larkins and became Brentwood's premier team at that time. Later, Brentwood Council facilitated the land at the Brentwood Centre to become the home of the new Brentwood Town FC, as the covenant covering Larkins would not allow expansion up the football pyramid, and the old Larkins Pavilion became derelict. Since that time, only youth teams were permitted to play on the ground at this venue, and Brentwood Youth have demonstrated a need within our community for another first-class facility that we, Brentwood Council, and our sporting family can be proud of, meeting all the requirements needed for the 21st century. Brentwood Youth have demonstrated to the ward councillors their commitment, their professionalism, and the desire to provide for our youth, for boys and girls, a home they deserve. Thank you. That's Barry. So, we now go to Councillor Mark Lewis.
Thank you. So, we all know the importance of sport in modern day Britain and its link with health, and so I'm very happy to support this application. The club, Brentwood Youth and Brentwood Girls, has over 600 youngsters playing, which is getting on for 1% of the entire population of Brentwood. And we know that schools today in modern Britain, having largely sold off their playing fields, are not providing activities. So I think this is an incredible public good that needs to be encouraged with sport in general. On the technical aspects, it's already been given mention this evening that this was an existing site, the greenbelt aspects and the exemptions, together with the parking, which as a local resident I think is a huge plus for the local area. So I also note the officer approval, the highways, the Sport England. So this really has a lot going for it, this application. And finally, I remember my old days when I was a youngster playing at Hackney Marshes football, which at that time was the largest playing area for football in Europe. And I remember playing without any facilities in the freezing cold and the hailstones, and it was horrendous. So the lucky children who are going to play on this field, wow, lucky them. So I wish this application the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Right, so we have unanimous support from the ward councillors. Does anybody remember Councillor Gelderblom?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say this is absolutely fantastic news for Brentwood, I think. I mean, so obviously it's important for the children, you know, to get them off of their iPads and to also form relationships and act in a team spirit as well, which I think is absolutely fantastic. The design, it's obviously multifunctional as well, so obviously when football isn't being played, it can be used for perhaps even other sports. Obviously, girls' football is a fantastic thing, you know, to get the girls involved. And obviously working with lots of children, I feel it will benefit and, like I say, get everyone out and about, and I'd like to move it for approval, if that's okay.
I'm happy to say.
I think maybe we'll do it. Shall we do cross-party? I'm happy to second that. If we do it cross-party, then that's. I don't want to get it Councillor Barbara's way or Councillor McShane's way, but happy to accept that motion for approval, and I will second it. That's everything you wanted to say?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Right. So, Councillor Martin Cuthbert to speak next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, absolutely agree with everything that everyone has said so far. It's excellent application and excellent for sport in Brentwood and for everyone who obviously loves the game. So fully behind it. My only concern with the application is the opening times that are mentioned, that seem to be sort of quite a bit of a deviation from what's there at the moment, and what other sites or similar sites might have. In particular, there's quite a vague request for +1 extended evening per month until 12 a.m. midnight that the site should be open. And I personally feel it would probably be... I don't like the vagueness of that. I think it's open to a lot of interpretation and could end up causing a number of issues. I mean, is it once per month, calendar month, 30 days? I don't really know what that is. I personally would prefer to see that removed. The club would always be able to do temporary event notices to cover themselves for that sort of thing. It's just, you know, we're looking at potentially protecting the neighbours opposite with cars and lights and things like that. And there are properties adjacent to some of the car parking as well. I just think, personally, I think it would be better if that's not there. I don't know. I mean, you know, open to obviously other people's sort of thoughts on that, but it's just something that that sort of stuck out for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cuthbert. And obviously the application itself was talking in terms of likely hours of use, which are mentioned in paragraph 6.9. With the comment about the extended evening per month. So that there are some figures already in there, and we can come back to that. The next person I've got is Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, great. I've not got too much to say. I think it's a good application. Welcome it. I think the extra parking combined with the new crossing near the petrol station should hopefully alleviate the unfortunate situation of parking on pavement on longer roads. It's a very good facility. I wish I had the same situation when I was playing football in Doningham's Football Club. We certainly didn't have this. It would have been good. Yeah, the kids who go there have a good facility, and welcome the application. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So after that, we have Councillor Keith Barber.
Thank you, Chair. It's always nice when you get an application like this coming forward. We had one recently with Hutton Football Club, similarly, where someone had assisted the community in delivering a first-class sporting facility, and that's what I think this is. I think Mr. Perry's testimony on behalf of the applicant is very persuasive and very convincing. The application is entirely policy compliant. I would also say, to be honest with you, I think any impact on neighbours is likely to be quite minimal compared to the BP garage across the road, truthfully. I think that might be more intrusive to the average neighbour in the vicinity. I don't think there's any amendment necessary from my perspective. I think it's a first-class application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Councillor Mayor?
Yes, so I'm the ward councillor for the ward right next door and just over the boundary, so I know this facility very well. I'm actually very pleased to see the extension of the car park and the entrance to the car park, which will make a big difference. The club has actually been very sensitive, in my experience, to the build-up of vehicles down on that stretch and have tried to manage that as best they can. Sundays are busy down there, which is fantastic. That's what we want to see. So I think that's going to be an improvement. Mr. Perry's already outlined the qualities of the club and what it offers, so I won't add to that. But I would agree with Councillor Barber's point in terms of movement at that time of night. Absolutely correct. It's opposite a BP garage, which is always in use. And also, the hedging is very dense there, quite high. I don't think you're going to get a lot of light coming in apart from in the entrance. So hopefully that reassures Councillor Cuthbert. It's a fair point to make. Like Councillor Barber, I don't think we need to make any adjustment to the application on that basis. And I'll certainly be very happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Mayor. Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Chair. I too welcome this application. Anything that provides better facilities for sport in the community is to be welcome, and particularly here the building of a new pavilion after so many years it's been missing. But I do have one question for Mr. Ovenden. I did notice that the ecological appraisal on the planning portal is quite heavily redacted. And I was just wondering if he could provide at some time an explanation as to why this is, not necessarily now, if it is confidential, perhaps by email outside the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gorton. Sorry, movement out in the corner of my eyes. I just, in terms of the comment that Councillor Cuthbert made, I had some sympathy with the point about hours. It's not about, I don't think it's about attempting to restrict the use of the new site. And as I say, the application itself was talking about the likely hours of the use of the building. And so certainly from my point of view, I wouldn't be proposing any changes from the hours that are being talked about. Obviously, those were, you know, there may be an element of, as things evolve, those hours might need to change, and that is a process that can be gone through. There's obviously also a likely application, a licensing application, if the premises that are being proposed are intended to be licensed, and there's a licensing application, and that would also have a discussion about hours as well, which can take place. So the only real concern I had, it wasn't really about residents living on the other side of the road. It was more to do with, I think it's 324 Ongar Road, which is right next to the site, and the way in which the comings and goings of the vehicles, particularly with increased amounts of parking, might become an issue, potential issue for that building. Not an unbearable issue, but given that it's right next door, particularly with the clubhouse, you're obviously going to be using that site later into the evening than you would be doing in terms of ordinary use of the playing fields themselves. So it just creates a situation where there could potentially be a great deal more an extended use than there currently is, and it seems reasonable for there to be some kind of statement in terms of what might be expected in terms of the length of use. So that would be my perspective. I know we did ask Mr. Ovenden to come up with some wording in terms of hours, so I'm hoping that he did actually come up with some wording.
Thank you, Chairman. I've done a number of things, including that, but one of the things I also did was to speak to a senior environmental health officer, and his advice is that the powers that environmental health have in this respect are superior to the powers that we have. So, for example, if there was a planning condition that was being breached, the way of dealing with that would be to serve a breach of condition notice, and that normally gives people 28 days simply to comply with the requirements of the planning condition. Environmental health have something that is a lot swifter and can deal with it. So I asked him whether, in his view, he thought that there was a need for a planning condition as well, and his view was that it was not. I can say more if you like, but if that's sufficient, I can leave it there.
So just the comment from environmental health was that they could deal with any breach of condition more effectively than planning. But if there isn't a planning condition, is that this is an environmental health condition we're talking about here?
It would be powers under environmental health. If there is a planning condition, it's planning that enforces it. But what the environmental health officer is saying is that the powers that that team have is superior to the powers that planning has, and therefore we shouldn't seek to have it both ways, as it were. Now, I can make a wider comment about the use of planning conditions, But if you feel that that addresses the issue such that these things can be dealt with, and also bearing in mind that the landowner is the council, which is another arm as well, that I think there are, if I can phrase it like this, superior ways of dealing with it rather than the planning condition where inevitably there'd be some sort of plucking times out of the air. The report makes reference to the hours of use that the applicant at this stage is thinking that they might want to use it for. I suspect that they're not fixed, and I suspect, like any operator of this sort of building, they will discover that actually there is more or less need. And certainly my view is that following the advice on how planning conditions should be used, I would not be recommending refusal of this without that condition, and on that basis really one shouldn't attach a planning condition. So I'm quite happy to leave it there unless you want me to say more on it.
That's, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to take that advice, your advice and environmental health advice, and obviously the council is the landowner. I think we went through, Councillor Baldock.
It was just following on from that. There's a thing on page 34. Now, I may be going down the wrong path here, but it actually says, although it says, to protect the amenity of neighbours, the operator of the new building should avoid using amplified music or PA system late at night. So it could only be vehicles anyway. It's not like they can start holding parties because they've got one late night a month, sorry. Is that a different sort of condition? I don't know.
Can I come in at this point? Thank you, Chairman. That isn't a planning condition, that's an advisory note.
Oh, okay.
So planning conditions meet various tests, but advisory notes, just informatives.
Oh.
So that's trying to suggest that really it should be operated in a way that doesn't cause that, but it's not actually a planning condition.
Okay, I don't think we have anybody else who wants to speak. Indicate now. No, that's fine. So in that case, we have a motion for approval, which has been duly seconded, and we can go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Would members please indicate for or against the motion when their name is called? Councillor Baldock. For. Councillor Barber. For. Councillor Barrett. For. Councillor M. Cuthbert.
For.
Councillor N. Cuthbert. For. Councillor Gelderbloom. For. Councillor Gorton. For. Councillor Mayo. For. Councillor McShane. For. And Councillor Minot.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous. And Councillor Naylor. Thank you, Chair. It's unanimous. Oh, sorry. Councillor Patel.
Well, it's a good job we're all agreeing anyway. Right. Thank you for that. We now move on to item 6, which is for Victoria Court in Victoria Road in Worley, and this is for the proposed construction of a mobility scooter storeroom, the installation of an entry ramp with handrails, the replacement of existing windows with partially glazed door set system with replacement of side gate, and this is application number 24/01406/FUL. The recommendation is for approval, and the case officer is Georgia Taylor. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 6 is for Victoria Court, Victoria Road, Worley, and the proposed development seeks to construct a new mobility scooter storeroom within the existing building, install a new entry ramp with handrails and fenestration alterations to replace existing windows and with a partially glazed door set system. The application has been presented at committee as the site relates to a council-owned building. The application site is located on the southern side of Victoria Road and is occupied by a 3-storey block of flats. The site photographs show the eastern elevation of the block of flats, and the hard-standing courtyard as seen above already benefits from an existing ramp which will be retained. The proposed development seeks to construct a new internal scooter storeroom within the existing community and TV room, which will be approximately 26.6 square metres. And the proposed scooter storeroom would be an internal alteration with no external extensions. However, the proposal seeks to remove the existing full-length windows on the eastern elevation and replace with new fire-rated door sets. The existing ramp will also be retained as shown on the proposed floor plans. The proposed ramp will be concrete and aggregate mix with maximum height of 200 millimetres, which slopes down with a gradient and will feature aluminium handrails to both sides. The proposed access ramp will have a depth of 5.9 metres and has been designed not to exceed the maximum rise of 1 to 20 permitted tolerance for wheelchair users. The proposal is recommended for approval subject to conditions, and the proposed development will provide an accessibility benefit and is not considered to be of scale or appearance which would detract from the character and appearance of the area. It is also not considered to result in detrimental impact upon adjacent neighbouring dwellings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Right, we don't have any applicants speak on this or any objector, but we have one of the ward councillors who is present because he's on the planning committee, so Councillor Naylor can speak first.
No, I don't have any issues with this application. I've not had any complaints. The only thing, when I was discussing this with my fellow ward councillors, is actually, why is it even being brought to planning? That's all, but I welcome it. If residents need a place to store their scooters safely, why not? Let's do it.
Is that a motion for approval, Councillor Naylor?
Absolutely.
Right, I'm happy to second that unless we want to be cross-bar. Councillor McShane can second it this time round. Let's share the goods. Right, does anybody else want to speak? I had one query which I'll ask in just a moment, but does anybody else want to speak? No, that's fine. I did have a query about the community room and the division of the community room which was shown on the plans, and whether that actually is all one space or not. Did we get an answer to that?
Yeah, I spoke to the architect and they've confirmed that the lounge is an open plan space. The line that's shown is a column and horizontal beam, which they've just shown on the drawings. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I was just looking at it. I had a little bit of concern because obviously if they were two separate rooms, then almost the entirety of one room is disappearing. But it's not that case, and it's also, as we're being told in the report, that the existing, as it stands, the corner of that room is already being used for the storage of the mobility scooters, and the mobility scooters are obviously all necessary. So I have absolutely no problem with it. That's why I was happy to second the motion for approval. And it's a very simple open and shut application. I apologize. Yes, you did. I would have done, but you are happy. Yes, you did. Apologies. My memory. Right, so we can... Councillor Naylor, do you want to come back?
One quick question. It's a polling station at the moment. I assume in that particular area is a room that's being used as a polling station. I assume this is not going to interfere. I'd rather the scooter storage was there than the polling station, but is it anything on that?
I wasn't aware. I can ask the architect for you if you'd like me to and get back to you on that one.
The polling people just have to work in a smaller space, but it's fine by me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only real change is there's a slight decrease in the flexibility of the use of the space, but there's an increase in the security, I suppose, for the scooters. Other than that question which couldn't be answered, this all seems relatively straightforward, so I think we can go to the vote on it.
Thank you, Chair. Would members please indicate for or against the motion when their name is called? Councillor Baldock. For. Councillor Barber. For. Councillor Barrett. For. Councillor M. Cuthbert. For. Councillor N. Cuthbert. For. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gorton. For. Councillor Mayo. For. Councillor McShane. For. Councillor Minot. For. Councillor Naylor. For. And Councillor Patel. For. Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous for.
Thank you for that. Right. We are barrelling along. That's good. So, we now move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is for well, I'm assuming we will take the two applications which connect to Brookfields separately as they appear in the report. So we'll take Courage Court in Hutton Drive in Hutton first, which is a variation of condition 2. I'm not going to read out the long element of that. It's a variation in accordance with drawings of application 23/00768/FUL. And the recommendation is for approval, and the case officer is Miss Fiona Dunning. Miss Dunning.
Thank you, Chair. There's just at point 6.4 of the report on page 52 of the main agenda, there's just a word missing at the end of that paragraph, and it should read landscaping. So it refers to condition 3, proposed condition 3 of the application. So as the Chair said, sorry, there's some reason it keeps on going to the next slide. It's a Section 73 application to amend the drawings under Planning Permission 23/00768, which was granted planning permission, I think, in 2024 for Courage Court. The new drawing numbers are set out in proposed condition 2, and the site is part of the Brookfield housing redevelopment, with the buildings demolished in 2024 and early 2025. The plan on the left shows the site as proposed, and the photograph on the right is shows the site as it currently stands. These two plans show the I don't know. Yeah.
Hopefully.
So far, so good. No.
No. No, it looks fair. Hopefully that works.
Okay, thanks. So this plan shows the original plan on the left-hand side and the proposed plan. The main changes to this one is the car parking proposed, which is the same number of car parking spaces, but because the tree that's mentioned in the report has been removed, then there's the ability of condensing the car parking and providing a greater landscape area in the northwestern corner of the site, which is in this location. So these are the two landscaping plans, the landscaping approved on the left-hand side of the slide, and then the proposed soft landscaping scheme. So you see the main area where there's been an increase in the landscaping proposed in the northwestern corner of the site. All of the other trees that were approved to be retained have been retained. So it's only the tree that was adjacent to Hanging Hill Lane that has been removed. And the report talks about this tree being damaged by lightning. So this shows the tree in 2021 before it was damaged and then subsequently removed. So the plans also include detailed changes to the building. It increases the height, and the report discusses the height changes. It's between, I think, 0.3 and a bit over 1 metre change in height levels. It's not considered that this impacts on the nearby neighbours, which are mainly to the east of the site, the terrace dwellings to the east, because the change in height is minimal. And you'll see the plan on the right-hand side of the screen just shows, you might be able to make out the red line which shows the originally approved building, and because the building needs to meet building regulations and fire regulations, and also to have to be a sustainable building, then it's had to increase marginally the size of the footprint. Once again, because of building regulations, originally it was approved to have cladding on the building, and it was suggested that this wasn't sustainable in terms of fire regulations. So it's been changed so that the building is now brick, but there's 2 tones of brick proposed. The other change is to some of the windows are a little bit smaller, and also the balconies. Originally they were approved as glazed balconies, and now they're metal balconies attached to the outside and supported externally rather than being integrated into the building. The solar panels remain the same, and the changes to this elevation are the balconies and slight changes to the windows. And then the northern elevation, you'll see the plan in the bottom right-hand corner shows doors. These doors are to the bin store. Originally, that the doors to the bin store were provided on the west elevation of the building. The other details proposed in the section 73 is the retaining wall on Hanging Hill Lane. And there's a proposed condition 3 which addresses this part of the landscaping because it has additional landscaping to what was previously approved. So that and the landscaping in the north western corner of the site are subject to condition 3. So the application for the section 73 is recommended for approval subject to the additional conditions, and I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Ms Dunning. Right, so we don't have anybody external to speak on this, or internal, external, if you know what I mean, not part of the committee. We have all 3 ward councillors here, and I'll go first of all to Councillor Pound, who's not the member of the planning committee. Thank you, Councillor Pound. Councillor Barber and Councillor Patel, who would like to go first?
Sorry, are we doing them individually? We are?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Obviously there is nothing to criticise or disagree with in this application. I remember voting for it last time it came to this committee, and I understand the reasons why it's come back to the committee. The safety of buildings, particularly higher-rise buildings, has to be the absolute top priority for us as a council, and I think we've behaved responsibly in terms of coming back with a modified application for this site, which I would like to propose, and I believe my colleague would like to second on this occasion, if you don't mind. But we would just like to get it delivered for the residents. I'm sure that's cross-party, and see the benefits of what will be some very attractive accommodation, which also will be economic to run as well. And I think it's going to help people on limited budgets. And I think that's a huge advantage to this development. And it's a testimony to the strategic housing development plan as well, that we're investing in it. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Councillor Patel?
Well, nothing further to add apart from the thank you to the officer for the great work, and let's deliver the project to the community ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to... Councillor Naylor?
Just a quick question. On one of the slides, there's a column of windows that have been taken out. What's the reason for that?
Sorry, what was that?
On one of the diagrams, there's a side of the building, a column of windows have been taken out. There were, on the previous application, there were 2 columns of windows, and on this one, there's 1 column of windows. In my opinion, the more windows in a building, the better, but so I was wondering what the reason was.
I think it's with the thermal assessment and meeting the zero carbon and trying to maximise the internal amenity for residents, it was proposed to remove those. But there are windows on the other side.
Yep. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to say? Just one comment that I would like to make is that I think it's a little bit of a shame from my point of view that the tree that was struck by lightning, which obviously is not the fault of anybody here, the view was taken that it wasn't going to be replaced as a tree, and the car parking spaces were all shoved together. Obviously having a tree there meant that from the point of view of the residents on the other side of Hanging Hill Lane, the side of the existing Courage Court was slightly obscured by the existence of the tree, and obviously if it was going to be replaced by another tree, the same would be the case with a new tree. Particularly these days with heat issues and light reflection issues and things, I think it would be, in general, it's quite good to have those kinds of shieldings in between buildings. This doesn't mean that I have a problem with the application as it's been put forward, but certainly just personally from my point of view, I think that might have been a better solution than the retaining wall and the low bushes, which are screening simply the retaining wall and not replacing the high screening which the tree would have provided. But it's a point I just wanted to make. It's, as I say, it's not going to be a reason why I would vote against it. Don't see anybody else who wants to speak, which is fine. So once again, we can go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask who seconded the application, please? Thank you. Would members please indicate for or against the motion when their name is called? Councillor Baldock. For. Councillor Barber. For. Councillor Barrett. For. Councillor Cuthbert. M. For. Councillor N. Cuthbert. For. Councillor Gelderbloom. For. Councillor Gorton. For. Councillor Mayo. For. Councillor McShane. For. Councillor Minot. For. Councillor Naylor. For. And Councillor Patel. For. Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous.
Right. The unanimity is extraordinary. Marvellous. Right. That leaves us our last item, which is item 8, which is for the other half of the Brookfield Close site. Again, I'm not going to read through the long list of conditions and things which are going to be varied. That will be explained to us. This is a variation of, partly variation of application reference 20/01912/FUL. This is application 25/00509/FUL, and the recommendation is to approve, and the case officer again is Miss Fiona Dunning. Miss Dunning.
Thank you, Chair. So the site plan shows the proposed buildings for Brookfield Close. Courage Court, which we've just discussed, is a separate application. The reason for the application is to consider the amended drawings, specifically the northern block of the site and the landscape plans, as well as the landscaping in general. which had 2 trees removed, and we previously discussed the willow tree, and I'll show you the tree that was also removed as part of the Section 73 application. So this shows the original plan, the non-material amendment plan for the northern block, I think, which came to committee last year, and then the proposed plan, which slightly moves the northern block and has a replacement tree shown adjacent to plot 51. So this slide shows the tree that has been removed from the site. It was not in a good condition. The landscape and ecology officer considered that the original tree report probably should have identified this as category C rather than B that was in the original tree report. And they granted the tree to be removed and thought that it could be removed as a condition, as part of the condition discharge. But because the Section 73 was required for the other parts of the development, it was suggested that this be included in the Section 73 application as well. So this plan shows the northern block, as I mentioned. You'll see, should be able to see the red line of the previously approved block. It's the block is more or less in 2 parts, and it's the western part that's moved slightly to the west, and the eastern part has remained more or less in the same position, just with the width of the boundary walls, or the walls of the building, has increased because of the trying to reach thermal improvements. So there's not much change to the footprint of the building, and it's considered that it doesn't impact on neighbours. The elevations show some railings at roof level, but those railings are only to be in place when when the roof is being maintained for different purposes, and it's not going to be likely that the railings will be erected on a regular basis. So when they're not being used, they just fold into the roof, and they wouldn't be noticeable at ground floor level. The other changes, you see the red line. Once again, there's been a marginal increase in the height of the building, and it's not likely that this is going to impact on any neighbours due to the distance between the adjoining neighbours. The Section 73 application also proposes to amend the materials from the approved building, which is in the bottom of the screen, which was brick, render, cladding and glazed balconies, to now a reduction in the number of materials to brick, render and the metal balconies. And this plan just shows the 4 elevations of the building. In addition to the northern block, there's also 3 other blocks. The house block, which is brick and render, and then the other buildings are brick and cladding. Because they're only 2-storey houses, cladding material is satisfactory on those dwellings, and then you have the cladding once again on this row of terraces and brick and render. And then you have the terrace building, which is a mix of brick and render. And plot 61 is highlighted because originally there was an angled window, but instead of having the angled window, there's a high-level window proposed, and this is to prevent overlooking of the house. That was house 1 that was shown previously. So the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions, and I'm happy to respond to questions.
Thank you for that, Ms. Dunning. Right, so once again, obviously we're in the same ward as we were before. We have all 3 ward councillors here. Councillor Pound, was there anything you wanted to say?
Thank you very much, Chair. The raising of the roof, was that to accommodate the sprinkling system? Yeah, that's what that was for, yeah. No, other than that, it's a shame about the tree, but hopefully it's going to be replaced. So.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pound. And obviously we now have Councillor Barber and Councillor Patel. Councillor Patel?
Yeah, again, I think there is nothing further to add, to be honest. I would just like to thank the officers and move the motion forward for approval.
And I'm very happy to second. Thank you.
Councillor McShane, you're being cut out here, but it is their ward. Do you want to speak, Councillor Barber?
Yes, to thank the officers, obviously not just the officer who's tonight on the planning side, but the officers from the housing team as well, and the housing committee for bringing this forward. The modifications seem very minor in terms of impact on neighbours, for example, in Rayleigh Road, who back onto the property. I think it's going to be very attractive. Look forward to seeing it. And to be honest with you, I'm just looking forward to seeing the back of what's there now, because it's been there for too long, and I'm sure we all want to see those houses developed on that site. Thank you.
Thank you. So there was one thing I wanted to say about this, which was, I mean, I don't have any problem at all with voting in favour of the motion for approval, but I wasn't happy with whatever it is that's happened with this tree T21. It obviously was originally part of the scheme. The proposal was that that would be retained. We saw an image, which we could get back to potentially. We saw an image where we have the overhead image of the overall site after demolition, where it's very clear from that tree 21 was in fine trettle at that point, looked like there's no issue. And then we see the image on the right, where it looks like it's been battered around, and it looks like it's come out of the middle of the Somme battlefields or something. And I would like an explanation as to what has happened between those 2 images, because clearly I can understand if something was damaged as a course of demolition work. That's, you know, it's an unavoidable accident. That's one thing. The demolition has already taken place by the time that image on the left-hand side has been taken. And the image on the right-hand side shows a tree which is nothing like the image, the tree in the image on the left-hand side. And I personally would like to know what's happening between those 2 images. And I think we deserve an explanation as to that, because it's not really good enough to be in a situation where the original application is seeking to preserve a tree, because at that stage, I mean, I think the point is, when it was originally surveyed, it was a category B tree. That was obviously the view of the person who surveyed it, and who are we to say otherwise? The fact that the arboriculturalist is now saying that it didn't even really qualify as a category C tree by the time we were looking at it, and one can see why, looking at that image on the right. Something has changed, and I think we need an explanation as to what it is. And we obviously don't want that kind of thing to happen as a matter of course, where somebody somewhere suddenly decides, after an application's gone through, which has sought to preserve trees, not all trees, but some, somebody somewhere thinks, oh, maybe that's a bit awkward, maybe we'll get rid of it and replace it with something else. It's going to be replaced by something else. I personally would like an explanation of that. So, and I don't want to tie it to the approval of the site itself, because we've had enough delays to the approval of the site, and we want this to move forward as soon as possible. But I think certainly the members of the planning committee deserve an explanation from somebody, whoever it's going to come from, as to what the process there was, what happened between those 2 images, why and how the damage was caused that you see in the right-hand image, and what we might try and do in future to prevent trees which were expected to be preserved, and the desire was to preserve them, from being lost, because it's a great shame, and that shouldn't have happened. But that's the sort of thing that can happen by an email, whoever it comes from, offline. We can get that information. I mean, I think if I'm a member of the public, and I do notice that the one response that we had from a member of the public on this was raising that issue of the tree. I would very much like to know what had happened. So I think it could be public as well. But I don't want to complicate things, but I think we need to be given an explanation for that. And I hope other members of the committee would agree with me on that. I don't think that's satisfactory. But I'm happy with the application itself.
Could I just come back on your point? I mean, I think you raise a very fair question, but I don't think it's necessarily a fair question to this officer this evening. In all honesty, I think that if it was me, I think I would be inclined to ask a verbal question at the ordinary council meeting to the relevant chair and give them early oversight that you intend to ask that question so that they can go away and find out the detail. Because I do think if you give them a week or so, they can speak to the right people and come back informed. But I don't think it's fair to ask the officer tonight.
I wasn't asking the officer tonight. I wasn't trying to put her on the spot and ask that question. As I say, it's a process which can happen outside the planning committee. And I also think, I mean, it's obviously an officer would be able to answer the question. They could supply an answer to a chair. It might or might not be able to happen by the time we have an ordinary council meeting. Do you? We can't really, unfortunately, the way it works, we can't really take that answer right now. That's the way the planning process works. It is irritating, but if there is an answer for it, can we have it provided? I personally, I'd like to see it in an email. I think members of the public might also be interested, and obviously it is a question that could be asked at ordinary council, and if by then the answer was available, that would be excellent.
I am in contact with the objector because it came in as an inquiry, an enforcement inquiry, so I can liaise with them about the response as well.
Excellent, thank you. Right, I don't have anybody else who's indicated to speak, so once again we can go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Would members please indicate for or against the motion when their name is called? Councillor Baldock. For. Councillor Barber. For. Councillor Barrett. For. Councillor M. Cuthbert. For. Councillor N. Cuthbert. For. Councillor Gelderbloom. For. Councillor Gorton. For. Councillor Mayo. For. Councillor McShane. For. Councillor Minot. For. Councillor Naylor. For. And Councillor Patel. For. Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous.
All across the board. Aren't we all happy to agree with one another? Well, it's good to have the occasional planning meeting where at least where that happens. Right, urgent items. There are no urgent items. Thank you for your attendance, and it's good that we've been able to deal with the items in front of us so quickly. So thanks everybody for coming.